Hello everybody, it's Trish again. I thought we'd just do my top 5 yoga poses. I'll just run through them quickly, and it just might be a perfect little session of yoga any time of day. These poses all focus on strength. So we'll begin with the first one, which is bridge pose. Lie back, knees bent, knees about hips width apart, roll the shoulder blades back, tuck them under, palms down beside the body. Walk the heels in if it feels okay for your knee joint, and begin to lift the hips up off the floor. Sometimes I have to walk my feet back out a little bit. Move into deep belly breaths. Really feel the low belly, the mid belly expand with the inhale and soften with the exhale. 3 deep breaths. Taking a break, maybe rock the knees a little bit side to side. And you can feel free and pause and do that several times, just allowing the body to begin to build strength. Then we come up to seated, reaching the legs straight out in front of you. You can still see my little toes. Spine is tall. We want the back to be really flat. This is staff pose. And it's really about the long line here up the torso, and then the other long line from the hips down out through the heels. Curl those toes back toward your nose. Take deep breaths. I like to take my hands down beside me, but hover them above the floor. Maybe even press them slightly in, lifting, extending through the crown of the head. Also, you can feel a string here lifting the heart. This is so good for strengthening all the muscles up and down the spine on either side, all these beautiful muscles that we need as we create better, stronger posture. Let's take one more breath. Relax and take a little break, lean back. For that staff pose, my knees were a little bit bent. You might have noticed that. For the next one, we're going to come back into that nice tall spine, and then begin to press the legs into the floor. See if the heels come off the mat as the toes curl back toward your nose. Take a couple of deep breaths. Feel the ribs expanding outward. And relax. Very nice. Bend the knees, roll over, and come up to table pose. Hands and knees. You can rock a little, you can take some cat-cows just to kind of warm up the spine as we move into one of my favorite poses, one of the best ones for strengthening the body. Lean into one of your knees as you reach out behind you with the other leg. I like to point my toes. Be careful not to let that hip rise up. We want to lower it down so that that hip point on the long leg points down toward the floor. The other arm, opposite arm, reaches out. I like to look straight down at the mat or just slightly forward. The thumb points up, palm is sideways, and you just breathe here. This is a wobbly pose. The toes of my other foot are tucked under to create a little bit of stability. The lengthening out, the pointing of the toes, the reaching of the fingers helps to extend the body and lengthen it out. Pull that low belly in. Let's take one more breath. And then bring that hand and knee down. We lift the other wrist and just twist it for a moment. And then coming back to table, we begin to reach out with the other leg, pointing the toes, rolling that hip down toward the floor so that if I laid a tray here on the low back, it would be level. Reaching out with that opposite hand. And we take 4 or 5 deep breaths, really pulling in the low belly, right below the navel, and allowing the breath to circulate mostly in the ribs, feeling the expansion on the inhale and the softening of the ribs on the exhale. You start to feel that strength building in the hip of the bent knee that's on the floor. And slowly come down. Maybe twist out that wrist we were leaning on. Let's go ahead and transition maybe through down dog. Take quick steps in, long flat back as you rise up for tree pose. Just scoot those mats back a little bit. Leaning on the wall, we lean into the foot that's right next to the wall, bend the other knee up and turn the knee open. You can keep the toes right there on the floor, or you can walk the foot to the calf, around the knee joint, or up to the thigh. Wherever you decide to place your foot, you'll begin to steady yourself. See if this hip starts to swing out, pull it in, lift the heart, add one arm or both, finding that spot that doesn't move, and take 3 deep breaths. Notice how the entire body is engaged. Lifting upward, rooting downward. Taking your time to come out, and we switch to the other side. I like to take a moment to swing the hips, maybe twist out the ankle, and then opening the knee, choosing where I'd like to place my foot on this side. We like to avoid pressing on the knee joint itself, so either go above or below it. Find that spot that doesn't move. Pull in the low belly, lift up through the waist, the chest, and the crown of the head. And gently come on down. Take a moment, swing those hips. And the last pose is Shavasana. At first glance, this pose seems like the easiest one of all. But in fact, it's one of the most difficult because it demands stillness of a human being. And we are mostly in motion. As you find your way back onto your back, take your time, maybe wiggling and stretching as you find a way to become more comfortable. And that might mean your legs are stretched out about a foot apart, the feet flopping open. The hands can rest on your belly or down by your sides. Sometimes people like to have their palms up or palms down. Tucking the shoulder blades in slightly to allow the chest to rise. The nose points upward. Take full deep breaths, adjusting to allow the low back to relax, the neck to have its natural curve. And it's nice to stay in Shavasana for at the very least 3 minutes. 10 to 15 minutes is a truly restorative length of time. The body slowly realizes that it doesn't have to run. It doesn't have to be in stress. And it begins to turn back on all of those beautiful systems, the digestive system, the nervous system, the hormonal systems, all turn back on and slowly come back into balance. If your mind wanders, sometimes that's just fine. Sometimes we fall asleep. Sometimes we just bring our minds back again and again to the rhythm of our breath. Some people like to engage the Ujjayi breathing here, in and out through the throat on the sighing breath. It's easy to do with the mouth slightly open, a little bit more difficult with the lips closed. Beginning to lengthen the exhale, really consciously letting all the air out, pressing it out. Waiting at the bottom of that exhale until you feel ready to draw the breath in again. And then letting it go. Maybe with the mouth open or in a slow, Let's just take 5 more breaths. And then one more deep breath in through the nose and out the mouth. Sigh it out as you begin to wiggle your fingers and toes. Bending and stretching, you want to gently bring yourself out of that stillness. You never want to jerk and just jump up. Eventually rolling over onto your side. Just seeing how the body feels after these simple poses. Letting the benefits sink in. Taking your time to come to seated and pausing for a moment just for yourself. To breathe, maybe with hands together at your heart or in your lap. Tipping the chin downward, you can say it to yourself and to the rest of the world at large, to all beings everywhere. Namaste. And those are my top 5 poses.